So now let's talk about the biggest geopolitical story of the week. We have the U.S. meeting with China at the APEC meeting in San Francisco, and there were a lot of topics met between Xi and President Biden. First one I want to talk about is fentanyl. I've said before on the show that the fentanyl crisis is one of the most, if not the biggest problem to America. It kills 77,000 Americans per year, and it's only getting worse as the years go on. One of the reasons it's getting so much worse is because fentanyl is now being laced with other drugs. One of them is they're mixing them with benzodiazepines. Benzos like Xanax have a really, really depressing effect on your body, same way opioids does. But it attacks two different receptors of your brain. So you're getting doubly depressed, for lack of a better word here, with two different aspects of your brain. And if you overdose on the benzo aspect of the drug, there's no way for Narcan to save you, because Narcan is only helping you with the opioid overdose portion, not the benzodiazepine overdose of the portion. So it's an even more lethal drug. And the high that you get from taking this benzo fentanyl mix is insanely addictive, and it knocks you out within 5 minutes. People don't even remember taking it after injecting themselves with it. And on top of that, you're also having another drug called Trank that's become very popular in the Kingston area of Philadelphia, where they have fentanyl mixed with xylazine. And xylazine is a horse tranquilizer, which is just way worse than benzos, but it's doing basically the same thing as the benzo fentanyl cocktail. America has to get this under control. And until we tackle the underlying causes of addiction and start treating addiction like the public health crisis that it is, and dealing with the supply that gets into the country, this isn't going to be solved. So right now, it looks like the United States doesn't have the political capital or the desire to treat this as a public health crisis. And the only thing we're willing to do is try to push down on the supply. And China is one of the largest suppliers, not of fentanyl itself, but of the chemical components that create fentanyl. A lot of Chinese companies sell the chemical components to create fentanyl to companies in Mexico and other companies across Latin America, where the cartels there then make it into fentanyl and ship it up into the United States. Now, President Xi has denied that this has been a problem. Oh, Jesus.
I wonder what it's focusing on.
I don't know what it's doing. Yeah. Okay. President Xi has declined that this has even been a problem, that it's not China's fault. But since China has banned the export of fentanyl last year, so they've banned the export of fentanyl but not addressed the outsourcing and the exporting of the chemical components to make fentanyl. Mm-hmm. So this is what Biden and Xi are going to talk about, that they talked about on Wednesday. And Biden has asked the Chinese government to now start regulating these chemical components leaving the country, which I think is a really, really good step.
Yeah, and she was receptive to it, and there were reports afterwards that the word got out to Chinese companies that they would crack down if they were found to export any of these chemicals, which is a really good thing. To me, it also underscores what I think is an underlying theme of this meeting on many topics, which is that there's kind of a power shift. It feels a little bit more like these crises that China is undergoing, these economic crises, are actually weighing on Xi. And more he's understanding that he will need help from the U.S. to get out of them.
Yes, exactly.
And so I feel like that him being more receptive on this front is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, I mean, China has suffered from its own deflationary spiral. Prices are down in China 0.2% over last year. Mm-hmm. We just talked about deflation is not good for an economy. It shows weak economic growth in the future. Yep. And China is realizing that it needs the American consumer. We know that American imports from China have dropped by 50% over the last year. Yep. And China is feeling that pain. And now it looks like they're kind of coming back to the U.S. and saying, what can we do to make you happy with us again? Because we realize that our relationship, the Chinese-American relationship, is the only way for China to get out of its problems.
Yeah, which is a great start. I think China, this is not enough. right? China needs to do more. Specifically, I'm thinking about what they do in the South China Sea, claiming it entirely as their own territory, encroaching on the exclusive economic zones of other countries because they claim them to be China's territory. I think that is one of the biggest changes that the U.S. and Biden should wait to see and should push for to actually fully let the floodgates open.